Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast, and let's get started with today's Tolkien Tuesday. Now, last week, we continued the long and twisting saga of the publication of The Lord of the Rings that took me all of Series 1, this time moving into pre-publication matters like the blurbs for both the US and UK editions, the maps, and of course, the dust jackets. And boy, did Tolkien make his opinion known about those dust jackets. I wish that I could say that I approve of the proofs of the jacket herewith returned. I do not. I think they are very ugly indeed. But to be effective, I should have been given an opportunity of criticism at an earlier stage. I tell you what I think, since I'm asked. Tasteless and depressing. Well, fortunately, the redesign pleased him, as we see in letter number 147, sent just 12 days later on June 15th, 1954 to Allen and Unwin. It was a great moment yesterday when I received the advance copy of The Fellowship of the Ring. The book itself is very presentable indeed. I think the jacket is now much improved and is rather striking. I like the gray paper used and much prefer it to the other colors. 6 weeks or so later then, on July 29th, 1954, The Fellowship of the Ring was published and reviews began to come in. And while we'll get to those reviews soon enough, or at least some of them, I want to start by reading Tolkien's own words about them in a letter to Rayner Unwin about 5 weeks after publication on September 9th. As for the reviews, they were a great deal better than I feared, and I think might have been better still if we had not got involved at all with the extraordinary animosity that C.S. Lewis seems to excite in certain quarters. He warned me long ago that his support might do me as much harm as good. I did not take it seriously, though in any case I should not have wished other than to be associated with him, since only by his support and friendship did I ever struggle to the end of the labor. All the same, many commentators seem to have preferred lampooning his remarks or his review to reading the book. Indeed, C.S. Lewis had warned against using him both for the blurb and for a review, warning Rayner Unwin, "Even if Tolkien and you approve my words, think twice before using them. I am certainly a much and perhaps an increasingly hated man, whose name might do you more harm than good." Sure enough, Edwin Muir in The Observer wrote on August 22nd, 1954, "This remarkable book makes its appearance at a disadvantage. Nothing but a great masterpiece could survive the bombardment of praise directed at it from the blurb." And while Muir confessed to enjoying the book, he still criticized the lack of the human discrimination and depth which the subject demanded. Mr. Tolkien describes a tremendous conflict between good and evil on which hangs the future of life on Earth. But his good people are consistently good, his evil figures immutably evil, and he has no room in his world for a Satan both evil and tragic. He had only read the first book, so I want to give him a little bit of grace. Now, you can find that quote in the Carpenter biography, but some deeper digging to a Mythlore article from 1985 gives us this "oh no, he didn't" moment from Muir. He says, "If Mr. Tolkien's imagination had been equal to his invention, and his style equal to both, this book might have been a masterpiece." Might have been. I'm just going to leave that right there. Then there was the Daily Telegraph's review on August 27th. Now, this is seen in a footnote to letter number 149, and it was written by a Mr. Peter Green. "I presume it is meant to be taken seriously, and am apprehensive that I can find no really adequate reasons for doing so. And yet this shapeless work has an undeniable fascination, especially to a reviewer with a cold in his head." Okay. Now, going back to that 1985 Mythlore article, there is this piece of inspired genius from one Stuart Jackman, who argues that Tolkien has written a long pedestrian fairy story for adults, and points out two huge flaws. One, Tolkien's obsession with detail produces a morass of words, and two, though the book appears to have meaning, one can't make out what it is. One isn't paying attention, one might say. Thankfully, though, not all the reviews were so harsh. J.W. Lambert in the Sunday Times wrote that it sweeps along with a narrative and pictorial force, while A.E. Cherryman wrote in Truth, "It is an amazing piece of work. Tolkien has added something not only to the world's literature, but to its history." Now, both of these are in the footnotes to letter number 149. Now, the Oxford Times review, apparently written by the editor himself, at least according to Tolkien, said that the severely practical will have no time for it. Those who have imagination to kindle will find themselves completely carried along, becoming part of the eventful quest and regretting that there are only 2 more books to come. Amen. Now, in that 1985 Mythlore piece, where a George H. Thompson compiled a bunch of different reviews, that's found in Mythlore Volume 11, Number 3, It has another of these not for everyone reviews. Not everyone will like this fantasy, but those who do will like it very much. And an LA Times review later in the year said, "We hereby warn all who have been dried and smoked in the smog of realism to avoid any invitation to enter the bright world of J.R.R. Tolkien in the Fellowship of the Ring." I like that review, but only the LA Times would use smog as an analogy in their review instead of as a mispronunciation of the dragon's name in The Hobbit. My personal favorite, though, is from an Anthony Price writing for the Oxford Mail. Once the imagination has accepted Middle-earth, a new world opens up. Tolkien's mythology has all the authority of the old Celtic, Scandinavian, and German mythologies, yet as a new creation. The book is like a chronicle of true events in a real world outside our own, stirring beyond measure. Oh, that nails it. Now, despite a few questionable reviews written by some folks who frankly appear not to have read the book at all, the overall approval certainly helped generate sales. In fact, the Carpenter biography tells us that only 6 weeks after publication, Allen and Unwin ordered a reprint. May our book be that fast-selling. The Two Towers was printed later in mid-November to similar reviews, and people were desperate for the third volume. The reviewer for the Illustrated London News said, and we would have agreed, the suspense is cruel. But that's where we'll pick up the story next week, because Tolkien was having trouble getting the appendices and his planned index completed in time. So join me next time then on Tolkien Tuesday. And for a deeper dive into Tolkien in the meantime, listen to the Prancing Pony Podcast, my award-winning show with more than 7 years working our way through the professor's books and learning more about the man himself. And join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Word Nerd Wednesday. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and follow or subscribe on your podcast apps. Follow @Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.